Hi, and welcome back to Platonic Soul. I hope you've been well. You may have heard me say in previous episodes that the real Platonic love, the actual teaching on love by the philosopher Plato, is something much less tame, for lack of a better word, than the notion of Platonic love that prevails in popular culture today. This is partly because Plato's actual teachings on love, or eros, as he usually calls it, are, as I'm fond of saying, deeply subversive. They have the potential to transform us profoundly. But it's also because there's a deep mystery at the heart of them. A mystery that's also a mission, a call to perhaps the greatest quest of all. And that's what I want to talk about today. You might remember that last time we talked about this radical and really quite mind-blowing idea that Plato introduces in the Symposium, that the idea of the good is the principle, the ultimate cause of both thought and being. Subjective and objective reality, our consciousness and the cosmos, our inner and outer worlds. And this idea isn't, for Plato, just some kind of abstract consideration that belongs only in a classroom. Because we remember that Diotima, the prophetess, told us a couple of episodes ago that this mystery, the good, is at the very heart of human desire. In fact, she said, simply, there is nothing that human beings love or desire, literally have eros for, other than the good. There's nothing that human beings love other than the good. Actually, what Plato through Diotima has done here is send us on a mission. If we want to really understand ourselves, we need to understand our desire. But Diotima's simple statement has left us with some really big questions. And as we enter into this mission of trying to find answers, we find that it's a bit like opening a Russian doll or watching a dance of the seven veils, because the answer to each seems to lead us to more questions. What's the object of eros? It's the good. What does Plato mean by the good? No mere abstraction, it turns out, but the very principle of subjective and objective being. But why should this be the object of eros? And why is eros the fundamental human desire? On the questions go. About this, I have two things to say. One is that I actually think there is, at least for most of us, something like a finite number of questions that need to be answered for us to feel that our curiosity is at least reasonably satisfied and our healthy skepticism at least reasonably addressed. And it's my hope to do that in this series. The other thing I wanted to say is sort of contrary to this in a way, that there's something playful about philosophy. In some way, it's like a game. There's pleasure in the doing of it, in the asking of questions and attempting to answer them. And we certainly see this playful spirit in Plato's dialogues. Porphyry of Tyre, a 3rd century AD Neoplatonic philosopher, whom I've mentioned in an earlier episode, wrote a biography of his teacher Plotinus, in which he captures Plotinus's love of questioning and of being questioned. Perhaps, in this case, even to a fault, though I think, in a way, an endearing one. Plotinus's classes, Porphyry tells us, were open to anyone who wanted to come, and, quote, since he encouraged his students to ask questions, the course was lacking in order, and there was a great deal of pointless chatter. Porphyry also tells us that once, when a man came from came from outside the school and complained about all the questions Porphyry was asking, because he wanted to hear instead Plotinus give a lecture based on a treatise, Plotinus replied, "But if when Porphyry asks questions we do not solve his difficulties, we shall not be able to say anything at all to put in the treatise." So a treatise is fundamentally about the satisfaction of human curiosity. And then finally we have this wonderful passage from the writings of Plotinus himself, who asks the question, one Plotinus foresees people smiling at, unable, as he says, quote, "to endure so strange a thesis," and one that certainly seems ridiculous at first glance also to us, perhaps, in our post-Cartesian time, that all things aspire to contemplation. Here's the passage. Supposing we played a little before entering upon our serious concern and maintained that all things are striving after contemplation, looking to vision as their one end. Now, the translator of this, the remarkable character Stephen McKenna, the Greek actually uses just one word, theoria, but he translates it sometimes as contemplation and sometimes as vision, perhaps because it has both senses, and he wants to include both of them. And this, not merely beings endowed with reason, but even the unreasoning animals, the principle that rules in growing things, and the earth that produces these, and that all achieve their purpose in the measure possible to their kind, each attaining vision and possessing itself of the end in its own way and degree. Some things in entire reality, others in mimicry and in image of vision or contemplation. We would scarcely find anyone to endure so strange a thesis. But in a discussion entirely among ourselves, there's no risk in a light handling of our own ideas. Well, in the play of this moment, am I engaged in the act of contemplation? Yes, I and all that enter this play are in contemplation. Our play aims at vision. And there's every reason to believe that child or man, in sport or earnest, is playing or working only towards vision. That every act is an effort towards vision. So every human at play, child and adult, is on some level seeking nothing other than theoria. And since Plotinus is a Platonist philosopher, we know that the vision that's being sought here is of the good. Although we'll see Plotinus has his own favorite word for this. And somehow, in some way, we're already seeing this mystery, the good, in the play itself, in the asking of questions that have no worldly purpose, but to simply follow our curiosity. Plotinus also speaks of this vision as a dance of the psyche, the choral dance in Greek tragedy that involved the chorus singing while they danced. Plotinus writes, "Within this circling dance, behold the fount of life, the fount of intellect, the principle of being, the cause of goodness, the root of soul," in this vision. Of course, we're talking about not just a game here, at least no ordinary game, because in the vision that Plato and Plotinus are talking about lies the satisfaction of human desire and the healing of the psyche. And so the path to it radiates deep hope. On the one hand, our playful questions will never end. and yet on the other, the answering of them will leave us transformed. And here, I'm unable to resist quoting, even though it's already quoted a fair bit, those lines toward the end of T.S. Eliot's Little Gidding, a poem on kind of a similar theme. With the drawing of this love and the voice of this calling, we shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. I think for us, the first step in this mission would be to return to this assertion of Diotima that humans desire nothing but the good, which seems like quite a statement to make, especially given Plato's conception of the good. Perhaps it's even an outdated claim to make in our scientific age, when we're used to thinking of our desire as based purely on natural drives for survival and reproduction. What do you think? Can you endure so strange a thesis? I'm mindful now of a 1987 album by the Irish singer-songwriter Van Morrison. It included a song in which he invited listeners to, as he put it, let go into the mystery. And he mentioned seeing what he calls the light of ancient Greece. The same album also includes a song called I Forgot That Love Existed, which is about someone rescued from despair by a new vision of love. And by the way, we'll see Socrates praising Eros and professing to always seek the guidance of this daimon before the symposium is over, in case you were wondering. I wonder if you feel drawn to let go into this mystery, into this questioning that is also a playing and a seeing and a dancing and a singing. If you followed me this long, I suspect you might be. Anyway, I hope so. Because we'll be starting to investigate the rationale for Plato's teaching on the good in our next episode. We'll be setting foot on the mission that Diotima has basically sent us on. The quest to understand our desire through understanding its object. Perhaps the greatest human adventure. Until then, be well, and thanks for watching.